Welcome to another episode of Morning Mojo with me, Shane Solomon. I'm absolutely over the moon to have Mike B, Spencer Woods, two of my dear friends on the podcast today. I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes with this one. Motivation. What motivated you guys to get into business in the first place? B, coming to you straight away.
Oh, what motivated us to get into business in the first place?
Because you've known each other for years, right?
Yeah, no, we're school friends, actually, and so's Alec, our other director at Big Box. But obviously Spencer and I started Big Box 7 years ago. I think it was really for a quality of life, better quality of life, and working with your friends, which is always a good one. We kind of bucked the trend because he's saying in there a little bit
Some
about...
people say don't work with friends and
don't
family.
work with friends or family. Yeah, luckily we're a bit of both, and we work together very, very well, which is fantastic. But yeah, quality of life, really.
Is that the same for you, Spence?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we found, particularly with Alec, our co-director, there just weren't many opportunities down here at the time. So Alec actually had to move to Norwich and then to London to find the sort of career path that he wanted. With us being, I suppose at the time, unskilled, we thought, you know what, we can just start off down here. So yeah, it was partly quality of life, partly about trying to, I suppose, grow something for ourselves. And then now I guess the vision is to try and grow something that can expand and help out the local community moving forward.
Indeed, and you guys are absolutely smashing it with Big Box as a brand. Loads of people down here know you. You're very integral in the business community. You're doing really well, but it doesn't start out like that. So people listening to this, watching this podcast are all about, look, I'm on the start of my journey, or I'm already turning over millions and I'm just hitting a bump in the road. What's been the pull for your inspirations? What's personally, to keep you driving at it and not just giving up, because it's too easy to say, I've had enough. I'm just going to go back and work for the person. What's been your driver, Mike? I'll start with you first.
I think honestly, it's a bit of self-belief. I think Spencer and I knew that we could do it. And I think having a kind of clear plan, I think Spence particularly, the way that his brain works, he's very measured and logical, and I'm not so much. I can be pretty logical, to be fair, in the way in which I go about the way I do things, but I kind of like that creative thinking space. So for Spence and I suppose we're kind of the perfect match in that way. We're a bit of yin and yang, because Spence will listen to some ideas that I have, some of them crazy, some of them not so crazy. And Spence will have some fantastic ideas as well, and we'll bring them together. Spence will come together with a kind of measured approach of the idea, and generally it has over the last few years worked pretty well for us, having those two kind of skill sets and minds coming together to kind of have a common goal. And I think we've always been on the same page. It's the same with Alec as well. We've always been on the same page of where we want to go, what we want to achieve. And I think considering the actual world that we've been living in and what we've been having to live through, not only as people personally, but also through business, obviously through COVID and things like that. The plan that we had, although it's been kind of quite malleable depending on what's been going on, it's kind of worked pretty well.
So belief then, really.
Belief is the main thing.
And I can relate to that. And the guests that we're having on the show have been phenomenal guests, and hence why you're here, because you guys are phenomenal. But belief is a real big one for me too. And from an early age, I always used to think, I can do this. I can visualize myself singing for a living and things like that. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but there's that underlying belief. What about you, Spencer?
Well, I mean,
your motivation.
It's like I said earlier about, wanting to help the community. So yeah, there weren't the opportunities available to us when we were younger. And I mean, I've run the gamut. So, I've worked for the public sector, I've worked for the private sector, small local companies, I've worked for big nationals, I've worked for big internationals. But nothing quite, excites me as much as the journey that we've been on doing it ourselves. I kind of have this vision for us in the future, interacting more, with the smaller business community, micro businesses, SMEs, etc., growing up. And I suppose not having to go in and just do the same thing every single day. I'm very much used to either process-driven work, where I'm having to follow a process every single day, or I'm used to just boring stuff where I'm going in, picking up the phone, doing the same job every day. The joys of running your own business is every day can be different. And you also have a lot more opportunity to go out and help people, interact with people, and improve your own personal life as well as your business life. So yeah, I mean, it's just for variety, and variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
That's why I love it.
I love that. And it's a bit like that saying that, if you do a job or a career that you enjoy, you don't work a day in your life. That saying.
So true.
And I think that is so, so true. All right, then. Well, what about then? We're talking about what it gives you, why you started that journey. What about when it doesn't work? We all get to that stage where you think, oh my goodness, this isn't going the way I thought it was. Do I just give up? What do you say to people listening and watching this podcast when they hit that stumbling block? What do you do then instead of just giving up, Mike?
I think, again, self-belief is important.
Okay,
I think it's understanding that things won't always go your way, and that's okay. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's normal. That's life. And certainly things haven't gone our way all the way through. Spencer will agree with that. Alec will agree with that. People watching, a lot of them will probably know. But ultimately, having that self-belief that we can still stick to our lane, do what we do and do it well, do it honestly, with integrity, and just be authentic. And that's what we've tried to be the entire time that we've run Big Box, and we'll continue to offer that kind of authentic experience. But I think, again, having that self-belief, it puts confidence. It's not arrogance, it's self-belief. So there's a difference. There's a fine line, but there's a huge difference. But I think our customers can always pick up on that energy, on that self-belief, because if we believe what we're doing, we can help them achieve what they want to achieve. And I think that's actually why we have so many clients that consistently work with us time and time again.
Sure.
But it's okay to fail. It's not a problem.
Well, in failing that we learn, right?
Exactly.
That.
Yeah.
Spencer, anything to add on that, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? There's always going to be stumbling blocks. I think sometimes it's healthy to be able to have a step back and not be too immersed in it. It's very, very easy to let things wash over you, and you're struggling for air. Sometimes just having a step back and reevaluating where you've come from, and thinking about, like, why am I doing this? What am I supposed to be doing right now? Who am I? Asking yourself these questions and sort of redefining yourself in those moments. Because very, very easy to get lost in the difficulties, the stumbling blocks that you come across. But, sometimes when you take a top-down view, actually doesn't look like that too difficult a journey. So, yeah.
Love it. Now, I'm not going to miss the opportunity of having two marketing branding experts on the podcast and not ask you what the difference between the two is. Spencer, can I start with you? Branding, marketing, people hear these words all the time.
So, I mean, we sell ourselves as an advertising and design consultancy. And a lot of people come to us saying, can you sort my social media out? Can you write me some good copy? What sort of format should I be doing? Because people don't quite realize the difference between advertising, design, branding, and marketing. So we always say to people, the first thing that you should look at is branding. And branding really gets down to the core of who you are. And it's about asking yourselves really important questions. Questions like, why am I doing this? Where am I sitting in the market versus the competition? What principles do I follow to make sure that I'm achieving that purpose that I have? Marketing then is the next step along. That's when you start getting into more sort of measurable outcomes, less intangible, looking at things like, where are you going to get a return on investment? How am I going to quantify the effects of what I'm doing? And that kind of isn't really our thing. Our thing is looking more at the initial step to finding out who you are before you go to a marketing consultant. And then once you've spoken to somebody and thought more about your marketing, that's when we can help looking at your advertising and design. So yeah, big difference. A good example to use is always marketing is asking somebody out. Branding is the reason that they would say yes.
I like that. That's like me going to Martin and Budge to get my shirts, get my branding sorted. So I look the part when I go out there and market myself, right?
Yeah.
It's another one as well. It's the same with
Excuse me.
Marketing is telling someone that we're a great design agency.
Yes.
Branding is someone coming to you going, I hear that you're a great design agency.
Yes.
And luckily we hear that a lot because we've worked really hard on our branding.
Sure.
And that's what we can do with other companies and help them.
And I'll be totally honest, obviously we're friends and stuff, but your branding is so good and it can go anywhere. Big box, of course, and I think fair play to Alec as well, because I think great design is like thought up by geniuses sometimes. And I know, it would have been a team effort, but when you look at it, you think it looks so simple. It's a square with big box. You've got different variants over the years that you've done it, gradients, no gradients, that sort of thing. But it's so strong. 2 words, and And you don't even have to put advertising or branding because you've built up the brand that people just associate that with that. So, so what about people starting on their journey, that are like, do you know, I know the importance of investing in brand, because this is the thing I always want to say. When I started my journey, I invested a lot of money. I didn't know you guys. Well, in fact, you guys didn't exist then. But I did go to a design chap, and he charged me a lot of money to come up with all these different ideas. But I believed in the importance of it. What would you say to these people? Because they can go on Canva, they can go on Fiverr.com.
Yeah.
We all know the people. When you look at it, you think, my goodness, what is that doing? To their brand to start with.
Well, we always tell people this quote, essentially. It's important to check the foundations before you build the house. Okay. Now, yes, you can go out there to the market and you can make something look pretty, right? You can put a lick of paint over a business. You can design a really nice looking logo that in the first instance will look great. But if you haven't built the foundations below that, then as you grow, that's all going to fall apart. The house is going to fall down. And it's because you haven't looked, as Spence said, behind the key principles of your brand. And you haven't looked at your positioning, you haven't looked at your values. And all of that stuff is really important because ultimately you have to build all of that brand before you even look at design. And this is what we want to try and achieve. And again, going back to what Spence said about helping our community, we want to help businesses save time and money and build trust with their customer base, because ultimately, if you don't check the foundations and everything crashes down later with your brand, it's going to cost you a lot of time. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and your marketing won't then be effective because you're spending money on marketing that essentially hasn't been thought through properly. If you don't have a brand, you can't have a marketing strategy, or an effective one at least.
Yeah, sure.
So this is what we're trying to achieve, and this is why we obviously do a lot of workshops with some quite large brands, not only here in Cornwall, but also across the UK, teaching them the importance of actually building a brand.
And it is exciting, Spencer, to get involved with a design agency and things like that and build people's brands. This is a business journey that is hopefully going to last forever for them, or until they build it, till they sell it. So it's an exciting time to get creative, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And this is the thing about, like you said, Canva, going on Fiverr. There are low cost ways of doing things, and that's great. Do you know, it's actually really, really useful that there are tools out there available to people. I know a lot of design agencies will, say really, really bad things about Canva. I don't have a problem with Canva. But it's like having a microwave, cooking a meal in it and calling yourself a chef. Ultimately, we actually build Canva templates for people. We build them using the Adobe suite, using Alex, 15 years experience as a senior designer. And we say to people, go and use Canva. But to start designing in Canva without experience, you're never going to quite get the effect that you would as a full designer. Also, a very interesting tidbit. If you design a logo in Canva, it can't be trademarked.
Oh, really?
A lot of people don't realize this. So even in Canva's own terms and conditions, it states, we would advise that you speak to a professional designer if you want a logo done.
Okay.
So yeah, something more people need to know about. But
okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, here's a question for both of you. What about brand position? All right. What is it and who does it well?
So brand positioning. Brand positioning is a funny one because it kind of, there's a little bit of marketing in there. There's a little bit of branding in there. So brand positioning is looking at where you sit in a customer's mind versus everybody else in the same sort of industry that you're in, any of your competition. The best way to look at it is you've got what you do best, what your competitors do best, and what your customer's looking for. So the best way to look at that is if you're trying to do what your competitors do best and what your customers want, you're not going to win. That's going to make you lose because you're not doing it the best. Mm-hmm. If you're doing what you do best and your competitors do best, but it's not what your customers want, that's a silly position to be in because It's not what people want. If you're doing what you do best and your competitors do best and it's what the customers want, it's a 50-50. It's a coin flip. It's risky. You might win, but then you might lose because it's not individual to you. You're not differentiating yourself. Mm-hmm. The position that you want to be in is where you're doing what the customer wants and what you do best, and where the competitors can't compete, where they don't have that unique value proposition. And if you look at history, you've got things like a great example is Hoover. Yes. People say, I'm hoovering the floor. Well, you might not be. You might be using a Shark or a Dyson. It's a vacuum cleaner. But Hoover was so good in their positioning and their marketing that they became like a go-to. And there's loads of examples like this, Tipex, hearing things on a tannoy. When you're so good at your brand positioning, your name becomes synonymous with the thing that you're selling, the product or service. So that just goes to show, really, I hope, how important brand positioning is.
Indeed. Now, what about your inspirations throughout your life? I mean, Mike, I'll start with you. In those early days, was it a person? Was it an experience that kind of inspired you? And what inspires you today?
That's an interesting question, really. I think for us, within Big Box now, I think it's actually fighting for each other as friends within the company. Like, I think because we've known each other for so many years, we work with our friends. It's really important. It's one of those things that we just really want to fight for each other and obviously build a business that we can all be proud of. Back in the day, honestly, it was at college for me. We had someone came in to talk about marketing and advertising and design and brand, all sorts. And I was just really intrigued to hear what they said. It wasn't until a few years later that I followed it up and ended up coming into the industry. But I would say that, I think that's probably what motivates me the most, really.
So you was attracted to be in that media mogul.
Yeah.
And there you are. And what about you, Spencer?
I mean, I'm just
inspirations.
I'm just inspired by. I mean, Mike's inspiring, Alex inspiring. At least in recent history for me, it's getting that brief from a client, visualizing what we can do for them, getting it down on paper, and seeing their face and hearing the kind words at the end. That's what inspires me at the moment. You may notice from our social media, our output is work testimonial, work testimonial, work testimonial. We work in a visual medium. And for me, what inspires me to keep going and push further is just seeing the good work that we do and hearing the kind words people have to say afterwards.
I love that. I like that. Work testimonial, That's a great little tip there. I might pick up on that myself. That's really, really good. Always useful nuggets. So, favorite quote or life lesson, gentlemen? Mike, I'll come to you first.
I'll go back to...
No David Brent, by the way.
No.
These guys
he gives
are
the
office
job.
fans.
You know him too well. He gives the jobs. Yeah, that's a good quote, that. So I'm going to go back to COVID times because we did a webinar around then because we kind of wrote a bit of a kind of paper, really, an opinion at the time. And because at the time, I think when COVID hit, it was quite tough on the business community. Everyone, first budget, they always cut as their marketing budget. And obviously, a lot of people know us for the advertising and the billboards that we offer. And at the time, we were talking to everybody about the importance of advertising still, even during times of crisis. And we did a big kind of talk about businesses throughout history that have kind of doubled down on their advertising during the times of crisis, and then the knock-on effect that's then had for their brand over the following century or years following that. I'm going to take Kellogg's as a really good example on that, and I'll come on to my quote in 1 minute. During the Great Depression, there was a company called Post in the US. They're a cereals company. I'd never heard of them. I don't know whether you had, but pretty much everybody now has Kellogg's in their cupboards, right? Yes. So, and that's because Post cut their advertising and Kellogg's doubled down on it during a time of crisis. Yeah. And 100 years later, no one knows who Post is and everyone knows who Kellogg's is.
Absolutely.
So it has a huge knock-on effect. So the quote coming onto that is, when times are good, you should advertise. When times are bad, you must advertise.
Lesson to be learned there, for sure. And award-winning, that paper, I might say, between the two of you.
It was, yeah. I'm proud of that.
That was absolutely fantastic. And for you, Spencer, any kind of motivational quotes or favourite quotes to finish?
I think keeping it brief, I like the quote, the idiom, "I don't buy it." And I think that the reason I like this, so a little stat recently from Retail Touchpoints, 83% of millennials, that's the biggest buying group, want to work with businesses that they feel share the same values. Authenticity is the most important thing in business. People want to work with people that they believe in and that they trust. So for me, I don't buy it. I like it because it has a double meaning. I don't buy it means I don't believe it. it also means I'm not purchasing it. So I always ask people when they're coming up with, things like their brand values, their culture, things like that, think to yourself, I don't buy it in your head. Are they buying what you're selling? Because you need to be authentic.
Wow, I love this. Well, gents, it is always a pleasure to be in your company, and today is no exception. Thank you so much for coming up to the studio. Well, look, there you are. If you're not already following these guys, make sure you do, and their wonderful brand that is Big Box. Of course, 2 of the 3. Alex not here. He's busy in the studio, no doubt, knocking out some amazing designs and doing what he does best. But make sure you follow them. As always, my thanks to Megan and to Jay for pulling this podcast together. It's all there to inspire you. Listen to these people. They're wise people. They're very successful people. They're on the journey that you're on as well, but maybe a little bit more advanced. So make sure you like, subscribe, share, all those kind of things. And from myself and the wonderful guys here from Big Box, we'll see you in the next episode.